Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Daily Detroit, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. It is Tuesday, May 21, 2024. I forgot the first. 21st? Anyway, I'm Jer Stays. Across the table from me is none other than Fletcher Sharp. How are you, sir?
It's hot. This week is hot, and I don't really do well in the heat. I know I sound like one of those Michiganders just complaining, but it's getting to the point to where I don't want to be outside anymore.
I feel like July showed up in May.
Yeah, and I mean, it felt like, June showed up in November last year, so I don't know what's happening, but it's very hot, and I'm a fan of being able to go outside. I'm not a fan of being outside for too long.
Sun's out, guns out. All right. We've got some stories to talk about today. The Detroit Zoo has a new branding, a little bit of detail maybe on the Detroit City FC Stadium site, a couple of different reports we're going to go through. And then we're going to talk a bit about the Lions schedule because I know a lot of people are fired up about it and kind of the lens it's going to put on Detroit. Let's talk about that zoo first because this is something that everybody sees when they go down Woodward. Fletcher Sharp, you've got a brand new design. I went out and I saw it at a press event this morning. I will put up some clips not only on the website, but on the video version of the show so that you can check it out. There's a whole new visual thing going on. Lots more animals, very colorful. I'm glad that it's not centered on a politician or anything else like that. I'm glad to see it focused on the Detroit Zoo. That also will include a new website. They've got a new logo for the Belle Isle Nature Center because if people don't remember, that's all connected together. We did an episode on that during the pandemic. I will link to that as well. That's a fun place to go, especially if you've got kids. There's the new mobile app. There's a huge 18-foot wide giant zoo thing to get a selfie in. I saw Paws and the zoo mascot hop into that. I put that reel up on Instagram. And then their new tagline is where life connects. So, I mean, this is really a big branding thing for the zoo. This isn't a new critter or something, but since so many people see that water tower every day, I figured we'd start with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good point to let you know, if you're wondering where you're going around Royal Oak, Ferndale, where the zoo is right there. It's right around that area. It's right there. So for them to do something like this, obviously, like you said, it's not a new animal, but it's the next best thing you can do is a total rebrand to let people know, we're still here. You should still come out and see the animals and have some fun here. Maybe get a funnel cake if they still have them, or I guess an elephant ear if it's at the zoo.
They even have conies, I think. I think American Coney's over there now.
Oh, it's American.
Okay, two things. One, favorite coney is?
The coney by my house. I don't know the name, but I know
Joseph's?
Not Joseph's. I used to like Joseph's, but their chili fries are way too sloppy. But the one that's kind of by my house off the freeway, by Alter and 94 is what it is. It's open really late. Food is great, and the lines are long, so you know that other people think the food's good too.
Well, we'll have lots of niche coney answers because although of the downtown conies, Lafayette is my favorite. My overall favorite is Dooley's in Southwest Detroit.
Well, I like Lafayette for a much different reason that people will be sure to ask me off air.
Okay. All right. Now, favorite animal at the zoo. I am a sucker for a capybara.
Usually a panda guy. If pandas are not available, I like tigers. I like big cats, and actually after having cats now, domestic ones, you see the similarities, and it's this is funny because this big old jungle cat could easily eat everyone in here. Meanwhile, it's trying to figure out why this reflection off someone's watch is bouncing off, and they're busy just doing cartwheels trying to figure out what that is. And to me, that I love that so much.
Well, for me, the capybara is all about the fact that it is the ultimate chill animal. Everybody hangs out with a capybara. There's all kinds of cool scenes you'll see of it. And I know I can't own one. I shouldn't. And it's a different thing. But the whole giant, want to hug a giant hamster thing.
Yeah, for sure. And unlike the sloth, it's actually chill. Sloths are chill, and then they'll knock over your kid's ice cream because they're actually really mean-spirited animals. So capybaras are the actual, I'm just here to have some fun and to get looked at and to be waved at, and that's really it. And then I'll go back, and lay where I'm laying, and then it'll be the end of the day.
All right, let's get into this little bit of a stadium update. There was a Detroit City FC ownership meeting, which we were not at or invited to, but there were some media outlets that did cover it, and we got some notes from folks. And I just wanted to bring this up because I think people were expecting more details, and there really weren't. I mean, a couple reports talked about maybe a crowdfunding campaign, debt equity. Another report in the news said, like, we really don't have the funding part of this all figured out yet, Fletcher. I feel like I'm going to put this in it will happen someday, but I'm going to be looking for like when the hospital comes down. Like they did confirm to the Detroit News, they're going to be looking for brownfield credits. And they're going to need them. I told you, I said, going to need them to knock out that hospital. So I feel like the timeline is looser because it's clear to me they don't really have like the full financial plan yet.
Yeah, this was supposed to be. I mean, obviously the stadium's not supposed to open until like 2027 or something like that. So like they
have some time, but they got to get cooking.
Right, for sure. And like the biggest questions people wanted to ask is like, how's this getting funded? And they're like, we're declining. Like those are the ones people wanted. So obviously they did give some information, but the biggest questions that people had were ones they kind of were like, nah, not today, not today. Which I guess if you don't really have an answer, you'd rather just say nothing than let them know you don't have an answer, because that looks a lot worse from the outside in. But I mean, still getting the plot of land is a big splash, and like that's the whole groundwork. If you didn't have that, you can't build anything. So I mean, that considering where they've come from to where they are now, it's still a very big thing to go. And I mean, you get to look at all the mock-ups until they show you exactly what they're thinking of doing. So it's big things potentially over there.
For sure. I mean, I am going to only hold it by the standard of I'd just like to keep seeing some bit of progress. I'm not going to be like, oh, this needs to get done by X. Because look, that piece of land has been sitting in a terrible state for a long time. If they can at least get that old, like, Star Wars ship hospital looking thing down. I mean, it's progress, and I think setting our expectations, I think, is important on this one.
I don't think it's going to be like Gold Star Detroit Stadium where it's like, we're building the stadium by Madonna. And then you go back there and it's like the season started and it's like, we've put down 2 bricks and that's it. Like, I don't think it's going to be one of those, but I do think like it's going to, you'll know when it starts. They'll be sure to like let everyone know like, oh, we're building now. Like,
especially if there's going to be crowdfunding.
Yeah. And I mean, people have already put up a flag at the site where it's like future home of Detroit City FC. So like people are excited about this and they want it to be known like this is theirs. So I think they'll be sure to let everyone know when they start for real, putting in the first brick. And maybe when they do a little announcement about it, maybe we'll be there for that, hopefully.
All right, let's talk about the Lions schedule because, I'm not going to go game by game, but I do think there's a couple of things that are notable from a wider Detroit perspective, specifically that there's just going to be a lot more focus on the city. Like the city's going to get its flowers as far as, appearances on television. Jason Kelsey is part of the pre-crew for Monday Night Football and all the other, stuff that comes with primetime television. We're only getting a few games that are starting at 1 p.m. Here we go. Like, we wanted this, and the schedule's tougher, and there's a lot more eyes on Detroit.
They have 5 primetime games, which starting off the season, they get the one game that everyone wanted to bash Ford Field about. September 8th, 8:20 p.m., Matthew Stafford and Los Angeles Rams come back to Ford Field to open the season. And if the playoffs hadn't happened last year the way they happened, he probably gets a big standing ovation. He might still get one to a degree now, but like people were really ticked off at the way that it went and how they received that. So I'm sure like you'll get the people who are like, I still love Matt, but people who are like, man, I remember what you did last year. Nothing. And they get another playoff repeat with the Buccaneers following the next week. Their first away game is the third one against the Cardinals. But yeah, like you said, their schedule's a little bit tougher. They still have the Packers who are better. The Bears retooled. The Vikings have a really great receiving core, but like they don't really have the quarterback, I think, yet to get them there. So the schedule should be a little bit tougher. Also, in my opinion, with the Lions is last year they were everyone's media darling because they had a coach who was like a swashbuckling, just we're going to go in there, 4th and 5, 4th and 6, we'll go for it. Doesn't matter. We'll do fake punts from wherever, and that's great. But those typically catch teams off guard, maybe for half a year or like a season. The following year, like you won't catch teams off guard. Come 4th and 4 from the 40-yard line, They're playing punt protect. It's like, we will let you kick the ball as far as possible without putting any pressure. We're going to make sure you're not going to run a pass. We're going to make sure you're not going to run the ball up the middle. Come a field goal from 55 yards. We already know you don't trust your kicker, depending on who it is, if it's still Badgley. We're looking for a fake. So you can kick the field goal with no pressure at all. We're going to play for the fake. What is it, 4th and 4? We're going to keep our defense on the field and make sure that you actually are going to go for it or you're going to punt. We'll make you burn a timeout to figure some stuff out. So it's going to be with the Lions can not just surprise people, but just beat them over the head. I'm sure Dan Campbell will still do the things that made him Dan Campbell, because he just strikes me as someone who's like, you could tell him the sky's blue, and he's like, no, the sky's green. And it's like, all right, Dan says the sky's green. The sky's green. Let's get out of his way. But, like, he's going to probably have to pick and choose a little bit more than last year. He can't just be all willy-nilly about it, or I don't think the Lions will repeat as division champions.
All right. Where do you think, this is way too early, where do you think that the Lions are at with wins, losses, and in the division as we stand now? Way too early prediction.
I think they sweep the Vikings again. I think they split with the Bears and split with the Packers again, because Jordan Love is good. And like before, I was kind of like, maybe it's, kind of whatever. He's been in the system for too long. He's shown that he's good. He showed that on Thanksgiving when he kind of made the Lions lose another Thanksgiving game. So I think they split there. I think the Bears have done some retooling. They're going to be a little bit more formidable. The Vikings, again, have that great receiving core, but I don't think they have the quarterbacks to cause much of an issue. I think the Lions can probably run them over one game and probably steal another one. I'm thinking probably 11, 12 wins. Like, I don't know if that's enough to win the division with the way the Packers are showing the way to be on paper. Like, they're one of the more complete offensive teams, given who they have already, and plus signing Josh Jacobs from the Raiders, like, gives them a running back who can get into the open field, which causes some problems for the Lions. So I think they'll be battling with the Packers to see who wins the division. I'm thinking 11, 12. I mean, Vegas has the bets at over-under at 11, so I'm thinking right about there is about right.
Well, we didn't talk much about Goff's giant payday, and I think that elevates people's expectations that if not this year or the next, this is a Super Bowl-bound team, and that record, that doesn't, to me, sound like a dominating performance to me, in your opinion.
I mean, it doesn't, but, like, I feel like I'm more of a realist. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say they're going 17-0, 21-0 right to the champ. No, like, that's obviously there'll be some games where they'll struggle a bit. I will say this about Jared Goff, for all of the guff he got about his contract and things, like, does he deserve it? There was a graph they showed 4 numbers. The first numbers were for the MVP, 27 passing touchdowns, 5 or 6 interceptions. The second numbers are for the greatest of all time player, about 4,000 yards, 30-odd touchdowns, maybe 7 or 8 interceptions. One's for one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league, 4,300 yards, and about 12 interceptions. And the last one was for apparently a mid, quote-unquote, quarterback with 4,500 yards, 37 touchdowns, and about 12 interceptions. And they pulled back the cards. First quarterback was Lamar Jackson, who's just bona fide stud. You don't take in the running yards for there. Second quarterback was Patrick Mahomes. Third quarterback was Josh Allen of the Bills, and the fourth was Jared Goff. And it's like his numbers are actually throwing wise better than two of those players by like a decent margin. But yet he's still looked at as like this guy who is like a bum. And I think it's really more so because after the Rams got to the Super Bowl, they got rid of him and got a different quarterback, and then went right back and won, which makes it look like the problem was him. And really, I don't think that was totally the case. And I think Goff had to mature. And I think with playing here at the Lions, it's allowed him to kind of feel like this is my team. I have no one behind him. And again, you throw that much money at a player where he's the highest paid player in the franchise's history, it shows like that's our guy. Like we fully are behind him. Where he goes, we will follow. I mean, the fans definitely are. They chant his name every chance they get for like literally anything. It could be a hockey game, golf tournament, kids youth basketball game. Like if they can get a chance to say his name, they do. So I mean, it's not really an indictment on him. I'm still kind of shaky on some parts of the defense. I don't know if the tackling will get a bit better. They didn't get rid of any coaches who were on the defensive side, so I hope they wrap up more. If they wrap up more, maybe it's closer to 12, maybe even 13. But if they don't, I'm thinking 10, 10 to be safe, 10, 11.
What is the level of disappointment that you will feel if they don't make it to the Super Bowl? Because they're spending so much money. They've wrapped up all these contracts, man. That feels like a low number to spend this much money, this much effort. And I think Jared Goff deserved to be paid 100%. I'm not arguing that at all. I think that there's a segment of this fan base who Jared Goff doesn't look like that, like stereotypical quarterback, right? Like that whole chisel, like there's just a vibe. This town has sometimes been, some fans, not all, but some fans I think have been a little unfair to him when he has delivered consistently. Now, does he need protection? Absolutely. But I don't think there's a better alternative that's available out there. But to spend all this money, to see all this happen, I feel like the bar, what is it? The reverse of, what did Marty Mullenweg said? The bar is low and then there's the bar is high. Who said that?
I'm not sure, but quoting Marty Mullenweg is... It's bringing back some really painful memories. I think the reason why some people are harder on Goff than they need to be at times, two things. One, as we all know, Detroit likes things grimy and dirty and this is our guy. Goff, when he is protected, is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Statistically, he's top 3. When he has to move off of his spot, he's statistically bottom 2 worst quarterback in the league. If teams know if they get pressure on him, he struggles. So people are like, that looks more like kind of a pretty boy or like a glass cannon. You are great when nothing is wrong. And when something is wrong, you are a problem. And also they kind of compare him to Matt Stafford, who they watched come back in a game with a separated shoulder and lead a team down the field to victory, which is the ultimate, no matter what he does, he could come back and say, I hate Ford Field, and I'm going to pee all over the sidelines. And they'll be like, yeah, for sure, he said that. But also, remember when he came back in with a separated shoulder and people are like, that's the ultimate gritty thing right there. So that's why some people will never turn their back on Stafford, because they have memories like that. When he came down the field with a fake spike and totally his own call and won the game himself. Goff doesn't have any moments like that, in my opinion, yet. So as a result, until he gets things to where people look at him as this is our gritty, grimy quarterback who's whistles through and through, it's going to be hard to win some of those people over. I'll admit, when they got him, I was like, well, maybe he's just a placeholder until they draft a quarterback, and then they didn't. And I was like, well, maybe next year, and then they didn't. And then his numbers started to go up, and I'm like, maybe they're going to hold on to him. And then he had last year, and I'm like, yeah, he's the quarterback. He's the guy. There's no one in the draft class right now where the Lions could pick where I would say, all right, that guy could come in and compete with Jared Goff. At this moment, no. There's no one they have. They have Hendon Hooker on the bench, which is great. I don't see him getting it anytime soon. And the fact that he was a 26-year-old rookie doesn't really inspire much confidence. But, I think they're fine there. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's the best quarterback in the league because, again, if you make him have to move, I don't know if he could hit a wide-open sliding door. But I think if he's left to his own devices with no one there, I think he is one of the most accurate and daring quarterbacks in the league. It's just protecting him, which they've done so great by putting all that money in the offensive line. But to answer your other question, I wouldn't be too let down. I know a lot of fans might be a little bit let down because they see the Lions as a stepping stone. I want consistency first. I think back to the Oklahoma City Thunder when they had Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden. They got to the NBA Finals against Miami Heat with LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, and they lost. They lost, I think, 4-1. And people are like, they have a young core. They'll be back. They have not been back since. So it's I want to see you get back to this level. Maybe not even maybe the conference final, maybe the conference semifinal. I want to see you do this 1 or 2 years in a row. Maybe 2, 3 years straight of you doing this. And then if you don't do it the next time, then I'll be discouraged. But until then, I need to see some consistency because as likely as they are to go and win 12 wins, they're also likely to win 5.
Really? You have that much swing?
I've been a Lions fan for most of my life. I've seen them literally.
So you still have that doubt?
It's a lot less than before, but I've literally seen them have great teams and then the following year not really change much and then miss out in the playoffs.
What do they need to do? I'll end the show with this. What do the Lions need to do to get to that? You know they're going to win the division, and like, what are the pieces that are missing?
Consistent outside pressure on the defensive backs, making sure they have people who tackle and cover well, making sure Goff stays upright. Their offense is fine, just as long as Goff stays upright and they open the holes for running backs to run. The offense is fine. Their problem strictly is defense. They got to put more pressure on opposing quarterbacks, and the DBs need to make sure they cover better. Linebackers are doing a pretty decent job. Get Aiden Hutchinson some help on the other wing, because like he's doing great, but when he's double and triple teamed, like at times, like again, the game against the Packers on Thanksgiving, Aiden Hutchinson got doubled. Jordan Love had time to look like Joe Montana. Like if you pressure them, the game against them earlier when they pressured him, he looked like he was a youth leaguer playing against professional players. If you put pressure on players, especially in this league, a lot of them crumble. So get some defensive pressure, consistent defensive pressure, get Aiden Hutchinson some help, make sure your DBs tackle and make sure they cover on the wing, and you'll be fine. I think if they do that consistently, and it's like the Patriots. The Patriots found ways to win because they were consistent. They didn't win every single year, but they were consistent to always be there. And if you can show me consistency, then you're not, I'm not going to say they're the same old Lions, but like, I will be a little bit worried that, you know, they can get back if they start off 2-2 and it's the same issues as last year that rear their ugly head.
All right. Well, I will leave it there. I'd love to hear what you think. DailyDetroit@gmail.com. Would love to hear what you think about the zoo rebrand, the stadium plans, or, of course, the Detroit Lions. And is Fletcher right? Do you think he's too pessimistic? What do we need to look at here? DailyDetroit@gmail.com. With that, I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Fletcher Sharp.
Thank you so much for listening. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll talk tomorrow.